Our notes for today are about Congress, both houses, lawmakers, and the people they represent. It's a fairly long set of notes, but covers a lot of important information. First off, most lawmakers or legislators start in local politics and they work their way up to Congress. Very few people get their first job in politics in Congress. Usually they have a political background. They might have served at the city level. They might have served at the state level. Some of them were governors. But very few members of Congress get their first political job as getting elected to Congress. So a lot of them have a good political background. Let's take a look at the formal qualifications. These are the requirements that are written into the Constitution. For the House of Representatives, you have to live in the state that you represent. You have to be at least 25 years old. And you have to have been a U.S. citizen for at least 7 years. If you meet all three of those, you're eligible for Congress in the House of Representatives. But you might not be eligible for the Senate because the requirements there are a little bit different. You still have to live in the state you represent, but you have to be 30 years old, and you have to have been a U.S. citizen for at least 9 years. So the Senate is seen as a little bit more prestigious, so the requirements are a little bit tougher. Today we think about there being some informal qualifications as well. The two main ones are education and occupation. In terms of education, most members of Congress have a college degree or higher, a master's degree, maybe a PhD or a medical degree, but almost all members have a good education. And most of them come from a law or business background. These are informal qualifications. Not everybody meets them. They're just sort of what we've come to expect out of people who are interested in running for Congress. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about the House of Representatives, which is one half or one house of Congress. The House of Representatives is apportioned or broken up by population. If you remember the compromises that went into writing the Constitution, one of them had to do with representation. The bigger states get more in the House of Representatives. So states with bigger populations get more seats, right? Virginia gets more seats than Montana does. California gets more than Virginia does. In total, there's 435 seats. A couple specifics that apply only to the House. If it's a tax law, it has to begin in the House of Representatives. And the House is given the power to impeach the president. That means to accuse him or her of wrongdoing. In the Senate, every state gets 2. So because we have 50 states, there are 100 senators in total. And this gives smaller states equal say. Because the Senate is smaller, and terms of office are longer, the Senate is often seen as a calmer, more even-tempered body than the House. We talked about that idea of the passion of the House creating all these bills. It gets poured into the Senate, which cools it off and is supposed to be a little more level-headed. The Senate has some specific powers too. The Senate is in charge of approving treaties and approving presidential appointments. For example, an ambassador or a Supreme Court justice. And if the House has impeached a president or other official, The Senate has the power to actually remove a president who has been impeached. It's never happened. Legislators look a little bit differently as to what their role is. The book talks about two different examples. The first is delegates. Lawmakers who follow this model try as best they can to respond directly to the wishes and needs of their constituents. So, if there's an important bill, then they will perhaps talk to people back home, ask them, how do you want me to vote on this? And they'll do what the people they represent want. Trustees, on the other hand, try to represent their district by using their best judgment. So they may not ask the people back home what they think. They may just say, you know what? The people elected me to do what I think is right, and I'm going to use my best judgment. In the Congress, there's something called the Incumbency Factor. And what that means is when it comes time to face re-election, incumbents, or sitting representatives or senators, the people who already have the office, have some big advantages over challengers, the people who are trying to take their job. So I'm going to talk about a couple of them. Name recognition is a big one. People back home already know who the senator or the congressman is. They've already had a chance to vote on them before. A challenger might be unknown. People don't really know who that person is. Incumbents also typically have more money at their disposal. They are able to fundraise a little bit more easily, so they have bigger war chests, more money to spend on the campaign. They usually have more resources because they already have an office in Washington, they have offices in the district, and they have some things at their disposal like what's called the franking privilege. What that means is, as long as it's official government mail, it can't be a specific campaign advertisement, but it could be, for example, a letter that a congressman writes to his constituents saying, here's what I've been up to in Washington. Congressmen are allowed to mail those out for free. So congressmen who already have the job are able to use that to their advantage. Lastly, people who already have the job can point to what's referred to as pork for their districts. What this means is special projects, like maybe more money for schools, or a new bridge, or a new tunnel that they were able to get for their district. If they've already got the job, they can point to these things and say, look at all the good stuff I've been able to get for our district. Vote for me and I'll keep getting more. If you're a challenger, you can't point to those because you don't have the job yet. So that helps to explain why roughly 90% of congressmen and roughly 80% of senators are re-elected.